Please. Well, it's wonderful to see some old friends and many, many new ones. We're celebrating the Feast of the Transfiguration today. We don't often hear these readings, yet they have a great deal to say about God's relationship with all of us. Transfiguring literally means that someone or something is seen in a new way. Moses glows so brightly after he comes down the mountain with the 10 Commandments that he has to cover his face with a veil. Jesus, too, goes up a mountain to pray, where his companions also see him transfigured, so dazzlingly bright that they can hardly look at him. Today's Feast of the Transfiguration is normally celebrated on the 6th of August, the same day as the bombing of Hiroshima in 1945. Nagasaki was bombed 3 days later, and in those two cities, something close to 200,000 people died. The unholy light of that bombing was the complete reverse of the shining faces of Moses and Jesus. 80 years later, people of faith are still working toward a world of enduring peace. Humanity has learned that atomic and nuclear energy can be harnessed for healing as well as destruction. Yet it is the will of human beings that will either bring new Armageddons or end them for all time. We can form people for light and growth or deform them through antisocial and deadly pursuits. People of faith and goodwill are those who will find the creative possibilities within God's creatures and God's creation. We are made in God's creative image. We're not destined for destruction. Today, we're going to remember and rehearse our baptismal covenant as we baptize 2 young people today. Rehearse literally means to use a harrow, a tool for the soil, to remove weeds and turn the soil and break up the clods and cover new seed. The hearse version of the word harrow comes from a wooden frame bearing candles or chandeliers like these, often for the dead. They can remind us of the light that shines in the darkness. Harrowing makes a place for new seed to grow under the soil and then to flourish in the light. Rehearsing our intentions and promises can open us to new growth and possibility. St. Hildegard called that new growth viriditas, greenness. Rehearsing the promises of baptism can do the same thing, especially in the sunlight or the S-O-N light, the light of God in Jesus and all creation. We're going to rehearse opening our minds and hearts, claiming what we believe, and affirming the promises that have already been planted within us. Something like gently covering the seed after it's planted and letting it grow. We start with, I believe. I believe. That word believe actually springs from love and care and desire. A beloved is one who cares and holds dear and has confidence in you. or faith in you. Think of how a caring parent treats a worried child, or the deep connection between beloveds, and the ready willingness to care for those we love. A community like this one encourages us all to grow deeper and more widely in ready response. Together, we're going to rehearse, replant our intentions, gently smoothing the furrow where seeds begin to grow. God gives the growth as we tend those intentions that we sow. We begin with 3 questions. Do you believe? Do you believe in God as the fluidity of love in 3 persons? That Trinity is beloved fruit, born of holy possibility, creating, humanizing, conceiving, inspiring, forgiving, rising into eternity. And then we continue with 5 more questions, acting in blessedly human and loving ways. The first one we will hear rehearsed is about apostles' teaching and breaking bread and prayers. I'm going to frame it in slightly different language. Will you continue in holy community, learning and building on the fruits of the saints before us and around us and within us? Will you continue in community, eating and praying together, and tending those seeds that have been planted? Will you look for guides to walk with you? Will you tend the fruits you already have and spend them and share them wisely and freely? The second promise is about resisting evil and repenting and returning to God. Will you examine how you live and learn and yearn for wellness and wholeness of body, mind, and spirit? And will you look for healing the people around you? The third one, will you share and give thanks for the good news of God in Christ Jesus? How have you discovered the creative possibilities and opportunities that God is working in your heart and your neighbors and the world all around us? It doesn't require speeches on the street corner, but it might look like sharing a meal with somebody who can't find enough to eat, or listening to a person in distress or despair or disillusionment. We may be the only sign of God's love today another person might hear. I'd encourage you to think about the next time somebody cuts you off in traffic. Offer a 5-fingered blessing. And smile. The fourth one, will you look for Christ everywhere, even in those bad drivers, and the hungry people on our streets and sidewalks? When we begin to love ourselves, we have a whole lot more to share. And sometimes it goes the other way around. For when we learn to share, we begin to have greater confidence and love of ourselves. The fifth one, will you work for justice? It is the only road to peace. Will you recognize that every human being and every living thing is a creature of God? They're all God's beloveds. These promises are deeply serious, yet even laughable. Laughter because we can't and won't ever do it all. Serious because we can always love more deeply and more broadly. Growth, deepening, intentionally including folk we think are strangers, whom we might encounter as just friends we haven't yet met. There is immense joy in living that way. Jesus shows us the way, finding joy and challenge and possibility, mixed with regret and the newness of growth. Hildegard would remind us that things are always growing under the soil. Be patient, keep watering and fertilizing, and keep yearning for fuller life. Some of you probably know the story of Sadako Sasaki, who lived in Hiroshima when the bomb devastated her city. 10 years later, at age 12, she developed leukemia. Her friend brought a piece of golden paper and folded it into a crane. Sadako kept folding cranes, hoping to make 1,000 of them, like these. Her friends and family finished the remainder after she died. That gift of hope keeps resounding all around the world, rehearsing love in many, many hearts. Churches and other communities are still coming together, praying for peace, folding cranes as prayer chains in a riot of soft colors, moving slowly and continually in space, bringing peace, rehearsing Jesus' invitation to peace and healing. There's a peace park in Seattle where a much beloved statue of Sadako was planted many decades ago, a young girl holding a delicate crane. That statue was stolen a couple weeks ago, likely for the value of the bronze. How might we respond or rehearse by planting seeds of hope and new life? What sunlight is in your heart and mind and hands to be shared and sown this day? We can all learn to be peace and make peace and hold peace in our hearts.